Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening. Welcome to another session of Meditation Mondays hosted by the Western Regional Health Authority Staff Welfare Team. Thank you very much for joining. Before I go further into this evening's session, just want to make sure that our presenter is ready for us, or should we allow a little more time?
I am here. I'm ready as soon as you are.
Okay, great. All right, so a pleasant evening again, everyone. My name is Alicia Whittingham-Gill, Staff Welfare Liaison Officer for the Western Regional Health Authority. And every Monday at 6 p.m., we meet on this platform to discuss various psychosocial support topics. Now, this month, November, is recognized internationally as Diabetes Awareness Month. And so we have, of course, to put on a session to speak about this relevant topic. So we will be favored with and graced with a lot of information. At this time, I will turn over to Mrs. Lorraine Gooden Thompson so she can go ahead and introduce our speaker for this evening. Mrs. Thompson?
Yes, I'm right here, ready and raring to do such a job. Mrs. Brown. Rosalee is a woman who loves life and believes in living it to the fullest and to the benefit of her fellow men. She is a wellness and health professional. Rosalee Brown holds a doctorate in behavioral health from the Arizona State University, MS in nutrition from the University of the West Indies, Mona, a BSc in health science, majoring in nutrition and dietetics from the University of Technology. She is a Caribbean certified diabetes educator and also holds a postgraduate certificate in integrative health from the University of Arizona, Andrew Wells Center for Integrative Medicine. She is an educator, a trainer, and holds a postgraduate diploma in education and training from the Vocational Training Development Institute. She is the regional dietitian for the Western Region Health Authority and also performs as a clinical dietitian at the Cornwall Regional Hospital. She operates integrated nutrition and health services Jamaica since 2001 and is the founder of Rosalee M. Brown Kindred Sister Foundation, a nonprofit organization. She is a member of the Jamaica Association of Professionals and Nutrition and Dietetics, JAPINAD, where she is the Standard and Regulation Chair. She is registered with the Council of Professionals Supplemented to Medicine and represent her association on that council. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Miss Rosalee Brown to the virtual lecture, the presenter for this evening on the topic, prevention and management of diabetes. Help me welcome Rosalee Brown.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson, and good evening, colleagues. I know some persons.
Welcome.
Right, I know some persons maybe are home already, some persons are on their way from work, and some persons are still at work. So thanks for joining. We hope to have a very fulsome discussion this evening. One I'm wishing will be beneficial to all of us. And so the topic, as you can see, is accessing the latent healer, prevention and management of diabetes. And our focus this evening will be on type 2 diabetes. So we're all busy, especially those of us who work in the Western Regional Health Authority, but not just this authority, all the other health regions. We're especially busy. We were busy before COVID, and now we're even more busy. And so I want to share with you the story of Pamela. Pamela is a typical supervisor in one of the health authorities. When she got her job many years ago, she loved her job very much. It was her dream job. This is what she wanted to do. But she had to be multitasking, and she did not mind that. She did that very effectively. But after a while, the job became a chore because she had to take work home sometimes. Sometimes she had to miss lunch to complete deadlines, and she was just going. Pamela comes from a family of persons, especially on her mother's side, of type 2 diabetes. She have seen her grand aunt losing her leg, other members of her family going blind because of diabetes. And she sees other persons around her suffering from diabetes. So she's aware of what diabetes can do. And so one day she was not feeling very well, very tired, but to her, it was not unusual. So she went and she got herself checked out, and a blood test was done, and she was told that she was pre-diabetic. She was wondering, what was this? She felt like the ground under her was just moving away. She was in a very bad place because, as I said before, she saw what diabetes has done and is doing to persons around her. Pamela's life is similar to many of us. We're very busy, no time to have lunch, sometimes no time to have breakfast. We are just going. I hope, however, we don't have many persons like Pamela listening here this evening. Let's talk a little bit more about diabetes, however, and most of us, we have heard about diabetes, especially those of us in health, those in the technical areas. We know what diabetes is. For others, you have seen what diabetes have done to others, and you have heard many stories about diabetes. But type 2 diabetes, as we know, it is one of the most common metabolic disorders. It affects how your body deals with the food that we must eat to survive. And there are two primary factors which happens with diabetes. First of all, there is a defective insulin secretion. So insulin is very, very important for us to use the sugar, the basic energy which comes from food. It's very important. It's produced in the pancreas, in the beta cells. And with diabetes, there's a problem with the secretion of insulin in some individuals. But some individuals, they have an overproduction of insulin. And what is happening? Their tissues, the cells in the different areas of the muscles and tissues, it's not as receptive to the insulin. And so these are the two dysfunction which happens with diabetes in a nutshell. But Pamela had what we call pre-diabetes. We are going to talk about what we're seeing now in Jamaica. And one of the popular studies we all make reference to is the Jamaica Health and Lifestyle Survey. The Jamaica Health and Lifestyle Survey 3 was done or was published in 2016, 2017. And according to the figures or the statistics coming from this survey, the prevalence of diabetes was 12% among Jamaicans 15 years and older. In the older population, 75 years old, it was 42%. That was the prevalence. And those who were below 75, the 15 to 74 age group, they had a slightly lower prevalence of 10%. And when this was compared to 2007, 2008, which is JLS2, we saw that it was 7.8%. So a whole lot happened, a big jump between 2007, 2008 to 2016, 2017. So there is an increase in prevalence. But what they also saw with the Jamaica Health and Lifestyle Survey is that 12% of Jamaicans had pre-diabetes, and women was leading in this. 13.3% of women had what we call pre-diabetes, and 10.7% of men. Now, what is pre-diabetes? And I must say, for the Jamaica Health and Lifestyle Survey, they use a fasting blood glucose of 7 millimoles per liter to determine what their definition of diabetes is. And this is slightly different in the literature depending on which standard you're looking at. So we're going to look at pre-diabetes now, some current diagnosis. Remember now, Pamela had pre-diabetes. So what pre-diabetes is, your numbers are not at the place where you're called someone with diabetes. You're on the cusp, as we would call it, of having diabetes. But the evidence shows that at this place, it is just as dangerous. You start to have nerve damage. There is damage to the the vessels that deals with the cardiovascular system. A whole lot of damage has started to happen with pre-diabetes. So Pamela was right to be concerned that she was pre-diabetic. And so these are 3 different criteria which is used. One of them using fasting plasma glucose. So the fasting, when you do your fasting and it's done at the lab, if you have a reading of 5.5 to 6.9, according to the American Diabetes Association, you are pre-diabetic. According to WHO, if it is 6.1 to 6.9, you have pre-diabetes. Another measure which is used is your 2-hour blood glucose challenge, which we call an oral glucose challenge. So you go to the lab and you're given 75 grams of glucose to drink, and 2 hours after they measure. According to the ADA, after this is done, if you have a 7.7 to 11 millimoles per liter, and we're looking at these in the bracket because that's what we use, or according to WHO, a 7.7 to 11, which is the same, you are pre-diabetic. They're also now using your hemoglobin A1C. This is now seen as the gold standards for many things. And what this is, it looks back retrospectively at the amount of sugar which stuck to your red blood cells. That happens normally, but when there's a whole lot of sugar in your blood, a larger amount is going to stick to the red blood cells. So when they do that test, if your HbA1c is between 5.7 to 6.4, according to the American Diabetes Association, you are pre-diabetic. You're just on the cusp of being diabetic. And an expert panel says 6 to 6.4. So this is where Pamela was, and she was scared because she saw what was happening in her family. I'm not sure how many of us have ever done this test, and persons will come sometimes to us and say, I have a little sugar, or I don't have diabetes, or so on. But the study is showing, or the studies rather, they are showing that at this stage, damage can happen just the same. So this is a stage for you to take action. Let's move on. So what are some of the things which can cause you to have diabetes? We're going to look at what we call the non-modifiable risk. So there are some things that you can't do anything about. One of them is ethnicity. So diabetes tend to be more prevalent in Blacks, in Asians, so your Chinese and so on, in Mexicans and so on. So diabetes tend to run in that ethnicity. Another thing that you cannot do anything about is your genetics. So it runs in family. Diabetes can run in family. And as you age, the longer you live, your chance of getting diabetes is increased. So as we say, your genes and all of these things load the diabetes gun, but they cannot pull the trigger. The trigger is pulled by the modifiable factors. And they're modifiable because you can do something about them. You can change them. And 3 of the leading modifiable factors that the research is showing that can increase our risk of diabetes are what we put in our mouths, our diet, what we eat on a regular basis, our habits of eating, which has a lot to do with our culture, the things we love to eat, the things we eat all the time, the things we eat because we're busy, the things we eat because we don't have any time. Continuous intake of a certain way of eating can increase your risk of diabetes. But the beauty about it is that it can be modified. And we're going to talk about that a little later on. If you change it, then you're not loading your diabetes gun. So if you have a family history, for example, I have a family history of diabetes. I can't do anything about it. And many of you, you can't do anything about it. Most of us are of Black ethnicity. We can't do anything about that. Most of us are getting older. We can't do anything about that. But we can do something about these 3 things. And we're going to talk about what you can do and what you need to do to reduce your risk of diabetes. So our diet is a modifiable factor. You can change the way you eat and change your possibility of having diabetes. Physical activity or movement, the way we move, can change our risk of diabetes. And just going back to diet a little bit, the research shows that a diet which is high in fat, which is high in refined over processed carbohydrate, can increase our risk of diabetes because it causes inflammation in the cells. It changes the way the cell responds. The cells, the muscle cells, the way they respond to the insulin or diet can change all of that. So physical activity, the more you move your muscle cells and you contract them, it makes them more receptive to the insulin. Remember I spoke earlier that 2 of the primary problems or defects is that 1, you are not producing enough insulin because there's a problem in the beta cells in the pancreas. And another, you're producing a whole lot of insulin, but the cells are not receptive. And so physical activity can cause you to be less insulin resistant or to be more receptive, your cells to be more receptive to the insulin. Another one that they're seeing, and a lot of study is going on in this, is about your gut dysbiosis. So when we talk, it's talking about the imbalance of all of the microorganisms in our gut. Our gut is colonized with a lot of microorganisms, most of them very, very good. They are responsible for a whole lot of things. As a matter of fact, the gut is now called the second brain because a whole lot is attached to what happens in the gut. And a whole lot of research is going on now to show that a lot of diseases starts in the gut. Type 1 diabetes being one of them. Our gut, the way the layer is, we have a thin layer with mucus and a thin layer of cells that protect the lining of our gut and the other areas, including our circulation. And when the different colonies of microorganisms, including bacteria, are disrupted so that you have more of what we call the bad ones and less of what we call the good ones, it affects us in negative ways. And so persons have a lot of fatigue, persons end up with acid reflux, what we call GERD, persons end up with intolerances to food, and we could go on and on because of this disruption in the gut flora. So there's a whole lot of name for that. You'll see now on the internet, they talk about leaky gut. In the medical field, you talk about gut permeability. So things which are not supposed to be going through into the circulation is passing through because of the disruption. And the research is now showing that this can increase our risk of diabetes. And we're going to talk about how we can fix this, how important it is to ensure that our gut microbiome, our gut integrity is intact. A lot of things happen with the fiber and so on that we eat, but we'll speak more about that. So these are the modifiable risks. If you have a risk of diabetes, if you were told that you have pre-diabetes, and even if you were diagnosed with diabetes, changing these can put you on the road to, if you're pre-diabetic, to stopping diabetes from happening. If you have diabetes, there's a whole lot of evidence showing now that you can put it in remission, or as we say in Jamaica, reverse it. It is not Duppy's story. It can happen. But you have to be willing to make these changes. And so we're going to speak about some evidence. This is a very old study. I think it was done in 1996 to 2001, the Diabetes Prevention Program, popularly called the DPP. And it was funded by the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive Kidney Disease. And they looked at over 3,000 persons and they put them into groups. One group of these persons, they were given the availability and the privilege of having intense intervention with their doctor, their dietitian, their coaches. They were told exactly what to do. They were meeting very frequently and they were followed. Then you had another group. They were put on metformin. They had just the usual time in the clinic. In our clinic, it's maybe every 3 months, every 6 months. So they came in and they got their usual intervention. And then there was another group which was put on what we call placebo. They weren't given the metformin or anything like that. And guess what happened? After a while, a lot of changes happened in these persons. They were able to reduce their weight. They increased their activity. But the beauty of all of this, that the persons who were on the intensive lifestyle change, they were able to reduce their risk of diabetes by 58%. 58%. It was such an overwhelming, successful study. And those who were on the metformin reduced their diabetes by a lower number. The DPP was so successful that they followed it up 15 years after, I think in 2001. They followed up these persons and they saw that even after 15 years, those who were on the lifestyle program still had a low prevalence of 27% of type 2 diabetes. The metformin group also had a low prevalence, I think it was 18%, but you could see how lifestyle made a difference. They're still following some of these persons now to see what is happening. But what came out of these studies that all over the United States, they now have these programs, the Diabetes Prevention Program, it's all over, where persons are put in lifestyle programs. And if they can reduce their weight up to 7%, they can increase their physical activity, and they can keep that weight off for up to a year. And this is by increasing whole foods in their diet. It's not as a strict diet as a strict whole food plant-based diet, but they increase the whole foods in their diet and they maintain this for a year. That will increase their chances of reducing diabetes. So you see, persons with prediabetes can keep diabetes at bay. And that is just one study. There are many other studies showing this. Many of them use pharmacological agent, but this is one of the study which relied almost solely, one arm of the study, on lifestyle changes alone, and it was successful. So I'm going to tell you the story of Eric. So Eric, we spoke about Pamela who had prediabetes. Eric's story is a little different. He's a busy person. And he says he walks most places, but very busy, have a hectic lifestyle. And persons all around him, in his family, in his community, diabetes was just a done deal for everybody. And so he went to bed one night, as usual, and he got up with a pain in his stomach and he just did not feel well. Something was wrong. And so he went to the bathroom, looked in the mirror, and he realized that one of his eyes was red, bloody. He could hardly see out of one. He barely glimpsed out of one. What really got his attention, he realized when he got up, he could not see. He also had a pain in his stomach. He rushed to his doctor, and guess what? The doctor told him that he had diabetes. It was so bad that his HbA1c was 17%. You remember what I said pre-diabetes should be? His was 17%. He had an ulcer. He was experiencing before tingling in his fingertips and so on, and in his lower extremities. And the doctor told him that he was so far gone. He was placed on insulin, and he was told that he would be on insulin for the rest of his life to prevent complications and so on. He was distraught. And he said there must be another way. And so he was pumped up. He started researching. He started looking at what he needed to do. His girlfriend at the time was also pre-diabetic. And so they started researching, and they found a doctor who is a cardiologist, but who was using this program. He's Dr. Eccleston, I think, Cadwell. They went to him and they were put on a strict program, a strict whole food plant-based program. He said that he does nothing halfway. And so he went right in. He drove in. When he went home, he cleared all the over-processed foods, all the processed oils out of his kitchen. He dumped up to 6 garbage bags, he said. And he started eating these whole foods, tubers, vegetables, fruits, all the junk went out. He was a man who loved his fast food, his burgers, his oily food, and so on. He threw those out. He started moving. And then he started to lose weight. He started to feel better. After a while, there was no need for medication. And most of the issues he had, they were reversed. This gentleman was just made the mayor of New York. Before, he was the mayor of Brooklyn. And he is on a campaign, he said, to ensure that all the organizations that are under his influence, those persons are going to learn about a whole food plant-based diet. And so this is the campaign he's on. He has reversed or put in remission, whatever you want to call it, type 2 diabetes. So we spoke of Pamela. We showed you the DPP that she can prevent diabetes. And this is Eric. And I can tell you about many patients I've had who are willing to dive in. they are off medication. Making the change is a dose response, and I'm going to talk about it. So it depends on how, if you, as we say in Jamaica, you're willing to go hard or you're willing to skirt around. So it's a dose response, but it can be done. And for those who are not technical, diabetes is a debilitating disease. It can increase your risk of dementia, Alzheimer's, blindness, erectile dysfunction. We could go on and on, amputation. It can destroy one's life, but we can do something. We have a healer within, and we just need to wake that healer up, and we can change the gun, which is loaded. We can take the shots out of it, so that doesn't have to happen. And so I want to introduce you to what I call the 7 C's of health balance, which can promote success. These are diet, movement, sleep, relationship, environment, spirituality, and quietness. Or diet, as I told you earlier, especially a high-fat, high-refined sugar diet, promotes inflammation, causes your cells not to function as they should. This is what the research is showing now, that fat is a big contributor, not only refined carbohydrate, to causing the cells to malfunction. And so we need to look at what we eat, what we put in our mouths, and the consistency of how we do that. We want to look at how we move, because this can reduce the non-responsiveness of our cells, make the cells more responsive to insulin, help us to lose weight, help us to feel better. Sleep is very, very important, and I want to spend some time on sleep, especially for those of us. Wow, I am going to have to plug my computer in, so just give me a minute, please. My battery is low. Sorry about that. I have an old computer, so it heats up when it's plugged in for too long. So, and also it's not keeping a charge for too long. Right, so we're talking about sleep. Many persons nowadays see sleep as an inconvenience. And for others who don't see it as an inconvenience, when they have a lot of work to do, we cut into our sleep time. Sleep is very important. It's not an inconvenience. It's part of living. Without sleep, we cannot thrive. Without sleep, we cannot be healthy. A lot of important things happens when we sleep. And so we all have what we call a circadian rhythm. It's about 24 to 24, in some areas up to 25 hours, they're saying some person have. But we have this rhythm where we're supposed to wake and then sleep. And sleep responds to darkness. In darkness, we produce a lot of the hormone melatonin, which helps us with sleep. But again, we see sleep as an inconvenience. We have 2 broad areas in terms of sleep. We have what we call our non-rapid eye movement and our rapid eye movement. In the non-rapid eye movement, this is when you start to doze, this maybe about 5 minutes. And if you are aroused, then you wake up. But if you don't, you move into the second portion of sleep. And this is where the heart rate drops, your brain starts to slow down, your muscles start to relax. And then you move into the third area of sleep where you're almost paralyzed, but there is brain activity. And then we move further now into the rapid eye movement. In that third phase that we just spoke about, in the non-rapid eye movement, a lot of things take place here. This is where we talk about our restorative sleep. A lot of junk is gotten rid of in the brain and other areas. And then when we move into our non-rapid eye movement, we go into another area of sleep, and this is usually the longest area if we are allowed to sleep, where a lot of cognitive things happen, or memory and so on. And so sleep is important, and all the phases are important. And so we need to make our environment very conducive to sleep in terms of how dark it is, in terms of how cool it is, in terms of turning off the noises. We want to wind down, and we don't want to cut in on our sleep. As adults, we need about 7 to 8 hours of sleep. The research shows that less than 5 hours of sleep increases our risk for many diseases. So sleep, my colleagues, is very important. It is not something we should skimp on. Relationships are important, and I'll speak about that. So I'm going to move quickly now into the other area where we'll explain these 7 C's some more. So the first one is predominantly plant-based whole foods. I have the word predominantly. I'm not saying to anybody to go vegan or to go vegetarian, but the research is out there to show that whole foods, the fiber in the food, is good for your gut microbiome. It provides I'm having a senior moment, but the fiber provides that environment so that the microorganisms can work on to give us the different acids we need to help with, even in the insulin mechanism, fiber is important in that. The result of the mechanism of the fiber and so on, the results of that is important in somebody is. All right, somebody is trying to screenshot. It is all showing up here and messing up my space. All right, so maybe we can share some of this later. So there's no need to screenshot because it's messing up my screen, the person who is trying to screenshot. All right, so the fiber is important, and if you notice, the colors are very important. Apart from the phytonutrients that you get from them, fiber and whole foods provides volume, and the volume will prevent you from overeating. The volume creates that fullness in the stomach. The stomach has a stretch response, and so when you increase a whole lot of whole foods, you have the chance of, or the opportunity to reduce things which are very high in calories. The processed food. So we're seeing here the dietary guideline. And if we look at our dietary guideline here, we'll see a whole lot of plant-based foods in terms of our vegetables. We see choices of our whole plant-based food. Yes, we'll have refined foods like our flours and cornmeal, but you have a choice. And then we have our fruits over here. So the choice is, as much as possible, you're going to go to your whole food, your whole, meaning it's not processed, it's not in a packet. And we are living in a country. We are living in an area of Jamaica where breadfruit is on the tree. We have akis, we have all of these things, fruits in abundance. Yes, it's going to take a little time for preparation. But when you think of the investment of the time you're making to prepare it, when you think of the dividend, the result, it is good to have. And so one of the guideline again is to eat until we're about 80% full. We don't want to overeat, because when you do overeat, even when you are having foods which are good for you, some of these whole foods, our whole plant-based foods, are high in calories, like some of our fruits, and high in carbohydrate. So you don't want to overeat. You want to eat until you're about 80% full. Leave that 20% space. It takes a little time for it to register that you're full. And so sometimes if we don't eat before the television or we eat with company, we reduce our risk of overeating. But many times we're eating while we're working, we're eating around the television, so we're not eating mindfully. So we don't even realize that we are satisfied. You also want to have your larger meals earlier in the day, and I know you have to work, so don't be afraid to take your lunch kit. Buy the lunch kit, women, like your handbags, take your lunch kit and take your meals maybe for your lunch, or if you prefer for your breakfast, your larger meals. In the evening, you should have less calories. And I want to make a distinction here because many persons will say they eat light in the evening, but what they mean by that, they eat crackers or they eat bread or they have some over-processed cereal. So it's light, but it's very refined. It's high in refined sugars, refined carbohydrate, a lot of sometimes processed fats, a lot of sodium. So that's not what we mean by eating light. You're having less calories, a smaller meal in the evening. You want to go, when we're talking about diet, for low fat and low processed fat. So low fats in general. You want to have your peas and beans and nuts and seeds, but we're talking specifically about diabetes prevention and management here. So you want to watch the fat. Remember, we spoke about what the fat does to the cells. And so it makes it less receptive. It increases inflammation. So you want to go low fat, but when you go low fat, you want to have fats which are healthier, your avocados, your nuts, and so on. And you want to have moderate sodium. So your plate should be very colorful. You should eat until you're satisfied on a whole food plant-based diet. There's no starvation because you're eating whole foods, you're eating until you're 80% full. You're mindfully eating. So you're not using food to medicate because you're sad, because you're stressed. You're eating for the health and well-being of your meals. Then we move now to, my screen is darkening, to movements. You want to make movements natural. Not everybody can afford to go to the gym. Most of you, I'm sure, don't have the time to go to the gym because of work. And it's not necessary to go to the gym. So make movements natural. Take a flat shoes to work or a sneakers, or if you're not living far, and walk. Get your exercise at work. For those of you who can sweep your yard, who can clean up, and these are just examples. Some movement should be natural, something that you do. You don't have to think hard about it. I need to go to the gym. I have to pay my gym membership. Movement should be natural. Movement should be functional. Movement should be enjoyable. And so when it's like that, it's not difficult and it becomes a part of what you do. You do it naturally. So look at how you can improve movements by just including it in the things you do on a daily basis. On weekends, if you can walk somewhere, walk to the market, walk downtown, depending on where you live, things like that. Make it functional, make it a part of what you do because we're all busy. So sometimes you might not have the time to do 1 hour of exercise, but couple that 1 hour of walking with doing something else. And so it will become a part of you. It won't only be 3 days per week or whatever. It will be daily. And this is what you have to do if you're planning to reverse or to prevent diabetes. Movements have to now be a part of what you do. All right. So that's movement, natural movement. So it is just second nature for you to move. The other thing you need, as we spoke about, is restorative sleep. If you're not sleeping enough now, you have to plan to improve that. If you're getting 6 hours, 5 hours, most nights for the week, you are in trouble in terms of your health. So you have to now work on that. And I know with the deadlines, the reports and so on. But you have to look at your health. You have to plan. And also as adults, we are examples to our families. And so the sort of lifestyle we live, that is what we're going to see in our children and our grandchildren. So it's very important. So wind down, go to bed, make your bedroom someplace which is very supportive for sleep in terms of temperature and the darkness. Take the television out of there and all of that. If you're having sleep problem, you can work on this and you can do this. So restorative sleep is important to preventing most diseases, but we're speaking now about diabetes. Healthy relationship. The research is now showing that relationship packs a bang in terms of preventing certain diseases, improving longevity. One reason is that a lot of habits can be learned from relationships. You think of your family, you eat according to how most of the family is eating. Sometimes you do the things your friends do and those who are surrounding you, you're tempted by what they do. But not only that, just the joy and the peace and the feeling, the good hormones which are produced when you're in healthy relationship, that helps. If you're stressed, you want to medicate yourself with food. If you're stressed, you don't want to go to exercise. If you're stressed, you can't sleep. So if your relationships are toxic, they are going to increase your risk of these other things. So you need to start working on the relationship, not just family, but work relationship, relationships in the community and so on. A healthy relationship says a lot about your disease state. It's not about you, you have to do for others. When you do for others, you improve your health. So healthy relationships promote healthy habits, it promotes well-being and mentorship. You can mentor others, your example to others. And then health promoting environment. Wow. I don't want to say too much about this because I won't stop, but your environment have to promote health. And when you work in an environment, especially when you work in health, and the environment is not healthy, it is not a good thing. Your environment can predict what happens to you, especially when you're spending most of your working life in an environment which is not healthy. So toxicity can come from fumes, it can come from stripping paints, it can come from molds, it can come from poor ventilation, it can come from surfaces which are not at the right level, can come from so many things. So we have to look at promoting an environment which will help our colleagues to be healthy so that they can spend more time at work. All of these screenshots are messing up my screen. So that persons can spend more time at work. They can be more functional. These are free stock pictures you can get on the internet. So we have to make our environment healthy and for all workers, not just some category of workers, so that they can produce. And so that when they go home, they have time to prepare healthy meals. They can be examples to their children and can reduce the health spending. So our environment should be health promoting. Our environment also should allow us to move. So when we think of the communities, we need sidewalks, we need lights so people can walk, not just in the tourist area for those who are in Montego Bay or in the cities, but persons who live in other areas, Glendeville, wherever. I walk sometimes, depending on what I have to do, I'll walk to Cornwall Regional sometimes. And I live in Mango Walk, and sometimes there is no sidewalk in some areas. And so if we want to reduce the health bill, we have to start looking at a supportive environment. But I'm not talking to people here who are making those decisions. I'm just talking about to my regular colleagues. So we have to make sure our environment is health promoting. We need to speak up, and for those who can make decisions, we need to make the decisions so that we can have health promoting environment, so we can produce, we can be happier, and we can be better parents and better companions in relationship. So look at the environment and look at what it does to you. It increases your risk of diabetes when it's not healthy. Spirituality is also very important to reducing risk of diseases. The research is now showing this. When we have a purpose in life, many persons are lost. They don't have a compass. They have no purpose. And so they're unhappy. They have the job they want, the house they want, the car they want, the clothes they want. They can buy any food they want, any liquor they want, but they are unhappy. And so the research has shown that a purpose. Most of us in Jamaica are Christians. We have others of other religion. But when we have a purpose in life, we are happier. We are more on track. We take care of ourselves more. We do the things we need to do. We make better co-workers, better family members, and it helps us to reduce diseases. So spirituality is also one of those important columns. And the last one is quietness. We need to take some time away from the maddening crowd, some time for ourselves to do introspection, to meditate, just be quiet, to enjoy what we have, to count our blessings. And we need to do that frequently. We need to start 5-10 minutes until we can build on more. There's a lot of research also which shows that meditation, spending time in silence can also improve our well-being, give us a hold on things, help us to make better decisions. We're not just running from place to place. We are not on edge. It's very, very important. And so we spoke of the diet, how important diet is, to having plant foods, how important that is to our gut and all of that, and how when the fiber that we consume, when it's broken down and we get some of the short chain acids and so on, how that can have a boomerang effect in the metabolism of some of the fats in our bodies and so on. And it is showing now that it has some role to play in insulin synthesis and even the beta cells. And as I said before, the gut is like the second brain now, it is showing. We spoke about how you should eat until you are not full, until you're not stuffed. And we spoke about all the other 7 columns: movements, sleep, relationship, quietness, spirituality. They are all very, very important. And so I spoke earlier about the dose response. Wow, it's almost 7. Let me move quickly. So if you have questions, it's very important. So you need to be intentional about lifestyle changes. You can't be skirting around, especially for those who are pre-diabetic or you have diabetes. You can change your fate. It can be done. It is not a hoax, but you have to be intentional in making these changes, changing your diet, changing how you move, changing how you sleep, all of these things. So the more you do, this is one of the things that the more you do, the better result you're going to get. You need to be consistent. I know it's not easy. I know it's hard for all of us to change lifestyle, but we have help out there. You have help in your dietitians, your nutritionists. You have persons who are in behavior health who can help you to make these decisions. You can speak to someone who can work with you. But there are some persons who just jump in and they make the change, and it can be done that way as well. So you want to unleash that latent healer. We were made, our bodies are so wonderfully made, it can heal itself. We have the things in us to heal ourselves, but because of our lifestyle, they stopped functioning as they should. We need to clean them up. It's like taking the car to the mechanic or wherever else, and you clean out the engine and you clean this out and you blow that. You need to do the same thing to your cells with all of these things. And then you can unlock that latent healer, which is in you, and prevent diabetes if you're pre-diabetic, or put diabetes in remission. And so I just want to say to you, you can do this. You can do it. You can do it. And there is help. If you need help, you can get help. And you just have to take control of your life. Yes, our work is important, and we do a very important work in the Western Regional Health Authority and wherever else we're coming. Very important work. But we have to take care of self first. We cannot give from an empty vessel or a defective vessel. We have to take care of us in order to take care of others. And we have to be good examples to our children and to our grandchildren. So you can do this. You can do this. Thank you. I'm not sure if there's time for any questions, but I'm here.
Indeed, Dr. Brown, we can do this. We have to take care of ourselves first. We cannot give from an empty vessel. Thank you very much. And yes, we do have time for some questions. So at this time, I'm opening the floor. Any questions from our audience? Elaine Allen says, excellent presentation. I agree.
Good night.
Yes, good night. Go ahead with your question.
Welcome to Run FM Radio, Internet Radio. My question to you, Doctor. A person who have sickle cell, would I classify that as a trace of diabetes?
No, that's a different condition totally. Sickle cell is an inherited condition. And so persons with sickle cell can get diabetes, but it's different. But although a dietary change or lifestyle change cannot reverse sickle cell, but it can keep persons with sickle cell doing very well if they start from early in managing their lifestyle. And I know this from experience. So a lifestyle change can really do wonders in terms of many diseases. Maybe not all, but in terms of lifestyle diseases, lifestyle change, that is why it's called lifestyle change, but it has nothing to do with sickle cell, sir. Thank you for the question.
Okay, doctor.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? I see Dancia Murray indicated that she loves the emphasis on the whole foods. Love the emphasis on whole foods, indeed. And you also emphasized on movement, Dr. Brown. And I'm going to just use that as an opportunity to let everyone know that in very short order, the staff welfare team, in collaboration with the regional physical activity specialists, will be extending the exercise program to the entire region. It will be on Mondays and Thursdays at 8 p.m. and that Zoom, it will be on Zoom, so that link will be sent out very soon. And for those who cannot join, you know, we will take every opportunity to move. I know the Cornwall Regional Cancer Support Team, they walk every first, I think it's every first Friday. Dr. Campbell, if you're on, you could correct me. Every first Friday at the Harmony Beach Park.
Every first Friday.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay.
Great. So, you know, persons can come out, and it's also a spiritually uplifting walk. So persons can come out 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. every first Friday every month. So we can use that opportunity as well to move.
All right, that's great. But what I would say to persons, to one of the plus for me out of what is happening at Cornwall Regional now is the opportunity to walk. So we just need to don our shoes and park as far as we can and walk.
Mhm.
That's a great opportunity. So if you do that every day, you're almost, taking care of some of your physical activities. So make it a part of what you do. So you don't have to say, oh my God, we're going to get time to do this again. So yes, and in addition to the other things which are being done, because some persons love sports or swimming or tennis, but not everybody can do that. So make walking or not walking, movements a part of what you do normally. I would recommend, because I find for me, you're busy. And so you have to twin it with something else you have to do. That's the only way you survive sometimes.
Indeed. I see a question, Galaxy A10 is asking, where can we consult with a coach like you, Dr. Brown? That person is asking, where can they get consultation from you, or how?
All right, I work out of Living Waters Medical Center. I'm here most Saturdays and Thursday evenings. So, and I also do telehealth or telenutrition. So they can call Living Waters. For those who are at the Cornwall Regional, then we have dietitians there. If they're on the clinic or staff, we have dietitians at Cornwall and the other hospitals who work along with the staff members as well.
Good afternoon, officially. Excellent, so excellent presentation, full of such good stuff. Dr. Brown, can you speak a little bit to about our children? I speak for myself. One of my challenges, even though I may want to have those nice, wonderful, wholesome food dinners, how do we make it attractive and appealing to the children?
Okay, so that's difficult, and I have that question a lot. But when you have not started, it is difficult. But what I find, depending on their age group, allow them to help with planning menus, allow them to help with exploring what you're going to do. And as I say to parents, especially if you have older children, you sit down and you have a talk with them. They're very intelligent. So you let them know why you're doing this. Diabetes runs in our family, or we're doing this for our health. So have that, meet them up here first, because they're intelligent. Children, even over 6 or so, can take that discussion and let them know what is necessary to do. And then plan menus together, plan the shopping together, and let them help. And it has worked with many parents. It's not always easy. And as I say to parents too, don't just start everything, especially for the children, at once. You move slowly with the children. And you have to make the food tasty. So you have to spend some time in preparing it. Have a prep day. For those of us who are busy, my prep day is Sunday. And sometimes I'll do things, I'll freeze and so on. So just like how we plan for other things in our lives, or education or finances, our health is so important, and especially our health of the next generation. So what I would say, Dr. Campbell, Dr. Johnson Campbell, is to just make them a part of the conversation and let them know why you're doing it. Because sometimes when you just force it upon them, they rebel. But let them know that this is what we're doing and why we're doing it. And sometimes, you will get them being more receptive, and then explore. I see some of the children, they're looking on YouTube for recipes, because you have a lot of these things out there now. So sometimes they come up with some of these recipes and they try it themselves. So just involve them. It's not going to be magic, but at least it's a place to start.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further questions?
It's
Dr. Graham?
not a question, but parents can try the peas punch. There are a lot of children who doesn't like peas. They'll pick them out of the rice, and they don't like stew peas and stuff. So we can try peas punch. They can get a little fiber and stuff from that.
Excellent.
Really nice.
Yes.
Really nice.
And it can also make a spread, just like how you
Yes,
make. So yes,
right.
it's experimenting.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
thank you for that. Just have to experiment with them in the kitchen.
Okay, great. Dr. Graham, you can go ahead.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening, Dr.
Again,
Graham.
commendations on a wonderful comprehensive presentation. I touched on many areas and I heard them talking about that will get the movement in. That's a nice environment and it will help with the relationships and stuff. So that has several elements that you would have spoken about. One of the things I find for kids too, especially those who don't want to eat vegetables, I've challenged successfully more than one of them. The cucumber crunch, the carrot crunch, who can crunch it the loudest, so you eat the loudest or crunch it the most. So sometimes you can use some of these sort of challenging things and they're not focusing so much on the taste, they are crunching, see who can crunch it the loudest until they have to try and swallow it until they find, oh, this is not so bad after all.
When you say punch, a punch, doctor, is it punch, you
how
say?
the work environment is within health, are there any suggestions that we can put forward to improve workplace wellness or making the working environment more conducive to us implementing some of these things that you would have mentioned? What are your thoughts on that? You're saying come and make your walk up and down, and that is good always.
Yeah, that is one of the good things.
But are there any suggestions as to how we can make the workplace more conducive to persons who are living with these diseases or have risk factors for them? But once again, wonderful presentation. Over.
Yeah, there are many suggestions, especially when we're making infrastructural changes. I know sometimes money is a challenge, but we need to look at some of these changes and how healthy they are in terms of ventilation, in terms of space for persons. If you're in an area where you cannot breathe properly, after a while, the air becomes toxic, you want to sleep. And when you want to sleep, when some persons are not feeling well, they start snacking and so on. So we need to get persons at the table who are not just builders, but persons who understand about the environment, the science of these things. As professionals, sometimes we leave some of these persons out or we don't look at the research. That is one. We need to look at where our staff eat. And yes, they're encouraged to take lunch or breakfast and so on, but sometimes they don't, especially the younger ones. Sometimes, I don't know now, but I remember years ago when I did the census, I was shocked to see where some people live, where they can get to rent. So sometimes persons who are working, so they only have a room, or so some people don't even have kitchens. So where they eat is at work. And so if we don't have healthy places for them to eat, then they are going to be forced to buy the fried this and so on. So as an organization, as a Ministry of Health, which is setting examples to the community, these things are very, very important. When we look at our environment, and I'm not sure who is on here with us, so I have to be careful of what I say, but a lot of times when I visit some of these environments, my dietitians can tell you, I say one of the first things people need to get well is beauty, a pleasant environment. And when you walk into some of these environments, it makes you sick. Certain things that you see around you. So little things like this that we take for granted. I was just saying to a staff, I was at Noel Homes. When I was growing up in the country, when you go to the clinic, is red oak, but the floor is clean, the yard chopped, everything in its proper place and so on. So the things we take for granted, they're very important to our well-being. So it's not just the fume only or the stripping paint or the mold. just how we keep the surrounding, the things which are there, which should not be there, the things which attracts rodents. So it's a whole lot. It's a whole lot, and we know it. We know the theory, but we are not putting it into practice, and it makes people sick, and persons are afraid to speak, but it makes them unwell. So I think we need to start there, making sure people can thrive with what they eat, how they move, what they breathe in, all of these things. It costs us in sick leave and everything else. And presenteeism, persons are at work, but they're not functioning.
Can I make another comment regarding
Sure, Dr. Campbell.
the workplace and where people eat and also what is available? So I have seen so many people, and a lot of people at Cornwall Regional, 3 fried dumpling with some gravy come from over that place over there. So the sweetest thing, and it's very cheap, and that is breakfast for a lot of people, and it's filling. Same place, same thing down by Type 5 across the road, Rasta Lady. Fair fry fritters are the nicest thing.
Right.
And it's, I mean, $100 and you can get breakfast and you full your belly.
Yeah.
How do we, and I suppose demand drives supply. So one, we have to change the mindset of people in terms of what it is they are choosing, but we also have to find a way to provide inexpensive, healthy food for our staff. Don't know how we're going to strike that balance.
The first thing we have to see it as important, and that it makes a difference. Maybe we're not thinking it, theoretically we think it makes a difference, but when it comes to the action part, we're not seeing it. And not everybody will rush to the food, but after a while they will, or sometimes we speak about the dose response, they might buy it once or twice, but they will. And again, as I say, people medicate with food. We all do sometimes. So you feel stressed, you feel for the high carbohydrate, the fat, and it's addictive. So the more you have, the more you want. So education is part of it, and we have to make the provision. Over the world now, a big thing that they're looking at is, they call it now, these in health plans and so on. They're looking at the medicinal kitchens for staff. So teaching staff how to cook simple things, but which are healthy for them, and providing it. And yes, at first, not everybody will want it, but when they start to see the difference in some other staff, it will happen. But we have to have a shift of where the investment is put. I'm in dietary, so I don't want to start off on that. So, but we even need to start there with what we provide and how we see, how important we see these things. Because sometimes it's just ignorance, I think. We don't think it makes a difference, but we would be shocked. It makes a difference, it does. So I think, Dr. Campbell, I don't know if the budget time start with maybe a pilot, putting in a small thing, and maybe it will grow. I don't know. But it can happen. Stressful job lead to stressful eating, exactly. That is when you eat the donut and you eat the so-and-so and the easy to eat, the fried dumpling. As Dr. Campbell is saying, it is less expensive. You don't have a lot of money, but then you need to know that that little bit of money can do something. You know, you can make your big pot of soup on Sundays or Saturday, and you can buy a thermos and you can carry that for lunch, or you make enough of anything and it can be taken for lunch. I take my lunch every day. So it's a decision that you have to make, and a lifestyle, but many persons make that change when they get the diagnosis. That's how most people act. When they get the diagnosis, that's when they jump into action. But let us not wait for them. Let us not wait for them.
Right, and then that becomes unfortunate. So you know, we have such a large audience this evening, Dr. Brown. We thank you so much. I'm not sure if Mrs. Ellis wanted to say something.
Yeah, one question. I've often read or seen or heard that apple cider vinegar is.
I'm not hearing.
I've often
Let's say this is impressed crowds we've had in a while.
Are you hearing me now?
You can go back and
Yes.
listen to this.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, I'm
Yes.
hearing you now.
Okay, sorry about that. So I've often read, the internet is a highway of stuff.
Yeah,
So I've
man.
often read that apple cider vinegar is good in reducing the sugar level. Is there any fact to that, or is it something that you recommend or not recommend for persons to drink to reduce the sugar level?
All right, so a lot of things can make slight shifts in our blood sugars, but we're not talking about slight shifts. So there's a study about cinnamon and many other things. But what we want is really changes that can make a difference. So some of these shifts, they by themselves is not going to prevent the diabetes or reverse the diabetes. But when you have all of these things together, so the cinnamon, which is used in the oatmeal without the sugar, the cinnamon, which is put on something else, the turmeric, which is used in the rice or something else. So it's a synergistic effect. So the apple cider vinegar, I don't know of any study or of anybody who uses it alone to create changes. Right, so a lot of these things can reduce your blood sugar, but in terms of preventing diabetes, no, I don't know of that.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Mrs. Brown Ellis.
You know, Dr. Brown, the presentation tonight has been so informative and in depth. And when you touch on the foods, it is just popping in my head. You know, we definitely need you back on this session, maybe before the year ends. But, you know, I'm wondering if maybe we could do a session where we actually do some examples of foods that persons can, you know, prepare and on a budget. You know, we'll talk about that though, but that's just
will be
something
good.
that
That's the
popped.
best way. I tried doing something with my staff. I think it was last year when COVID started, we had a program going, but they had challenges in logging on with data and so on, because we're seeing so many examples of persons succumbing or having some of these chronic diseases. And we started something in the department. It was short-lived. Some persons benefited though. So, you know, the change really, really, really is powerful.
Okay, so that
May I suggest?
Yes, Dr.
May I
Johnson Campbell.
suggest just before Christmas, maybe a week or two before Christmas, we
Yes.
have to have something like this, because we know that over Christmas, people will overeat, or diabetics in particular want the fruit cake and the sorrel.
Maybe what we could do is some food demonstration. Maybe we could do some food demonstration instead. I don't know who would work that
for
out.
sure.
Excellent idea. I think that's along the lines of what I'm thinking.
Done.
Or share recipes. But some people love practical. When my clients come to me, first thing, or even at the hospital, what I must eat. Because that is what persons need, the practical thing. And
Yes.
we're no different. We're not different.
I agree. And the food on a budget, I think I like that part too, to be incorporated.
Yeah. We'll see. I'll talk to my colleagues, not just me, love.
Right. Yes, that we can make it
All
happen.
right, guys, I want us to leave here. I know it's not easy. Can I talk for myself? I don't promote things at this time. It's now 7:21. I was saying to Nurse McGrath that I need to practice what I preach. And so this is the time for family or other things. But I'm hoping that you can take away something to make changes and not just think about it. Start small. Those who want to jump in, jump in. Trust me, you're going to be happy when you make these changes in your life. Food is medicine if you have a disease, but food is also prevention of disease. It is.